G'day, I'm Mark Hoth and welcome to Swift Almanac. GitHub integration. Probably the greatest addition to Xcode 9 is the integration of GitHub into the integrated development environment. In fact, prior to Xcode 9, it really wasn't integrated. So now you can save and back up automatically to your version control system from within Xcode, and it's really simple. So let's get a GitHub account and configure our source code control system. Okay, so we're going to look at source code control. Now, when we create a new project or new workspace, we'll create a single view app. We'll call it test 1. We'll put it on the drive, and you'll see here it says create Git repository on my Mac. So what the creation process is doing is it's creating a miniature version control system on our computer. Now, if we go here, this little icon, which is the source code control icon, we can see that it's created a branch. The original branch is called the master, and it's our initial commit of all of our initial files and whatever. Now what we might want to do is save all these files up to the cloud, and we can do that at the GitHub website, and that allows us to move our projects between computers, and it allows us to share our code amongst a group of developers. So this makes remote development really simple. So let's go to the GitHub website and create our GitHub account. So here I'm going to create a temporary account called Swift Almanac Test using that email and password. I am going to, well, you can choose unlimited public repositories, or if you want to have private repositories, then you can pay $7 a month for the privilege. So basically, if you're just yourself and you're not sharing your documents with anyone else, and you're just tinkering around, then the free public repositories is really all you need. If you've got some sensitive documents and you're sharing them with people and you only want people to contribute and see your code, then you can create a private repository, and then you can add members to all that kind of stuff. We don't need to set up an organization. We don't want to get any any news, so we'll continue. We're somewhat experienced. We are developers, we're hobbyists, and we're interested in Swift, or you can skip this step altogether. And once it's submitted, you can go to the top right hand corner and go to the settings. Under emails, I'll just say a dummy account. We're going to upload a picture and use one of yourself. Don't use something ridiculous. Here's one of me while I was going on a run in the middle of the rain. You can add some information about yourself, etc., where you're located, go update profile. Go to emails, and you'll see that you need to verify your email. So now that I've verified my email address, the other thing that you may want to do is go down to security, and you can set up two-factor identification. If you've got sensitive source code, then I suggest you do that. And the other thing you want to do is you want to set up your recovery tokens, which you can do through your Facebook account. Finally, there's billing. If you want to get private repositories, then you can pay $7 a month. Okay, so we've got our GitHub account set up. Now let's go back to Xcode. Under Xcode and Preferences, we have our Accounts ID, and then under Source Control Accounts, you want to click the plus sign, select GitHub, and then enter in your account and password. So that is your email address and the password, and then sign in. This is going to create your account within the version control system, and here there are some settings for Git if you want to have an ignore files, etc. Note here that Subversion is another type of source control system that you can use. However, Apple has notified us in Xcode 9 that Subversion is going to be deprecated, so it's not going to be supported in a future version. So we're talking about Git and Git only. When we've got version control, there's certain files and documents, etc., that we don't want to be saving copies of every time we are making a couple of lines changes to our code. So there's a git ignore file, and essentially you go into your terminal and there is a line of code that you can use, which is that, which will suck down the ignore files for Swift and store them on your computer, and that's at a website called gitignore.io. And then when we go into Xcode and build a project, let's call it test 1. And let's create a Git repository on my Mac and create that. So that's on our computer now. Get out of Xcode. Then go back into CD desktop, CD test 1. There's our test file. Okay, so for each project we create, as soon as we've created the project, we need to add an ignore file to the repository. So we go git ignore Swift Mac OS okay, and then we want to add to the Git repository that file. And then we want to commit that change. .m being modified files. And a little commit message. And we're done. Okay, so now we can go back into Xcode and open our project. Okay, so we've got our repository on our computer here. We've added the git ignore file, and we want to now create a remote. So we go create test1 remote on GitHub, and we'll call this GitHub. And that is going to create a copy of our repository on our GitHub cloud. Okay, so let's have a look at our source files. We've got app delegate. It's all looking good. Let's put in a print state. Oh, well, hang on for a moment. Well, let's print. This is a test commit. Okay, so we've got M here. That means it's modified. Let's go back to our source code. We've got our branch here. Let's commit this. Added a print statement. and we've clicked the push to remote, so that's going to update both our local file here and our remote file. Well, let's check it out on GitHub. Here we've got our 1 new repository, and it's called test1, and we can look at our code. There's our gitignore file, app delegate, and there is our print commit. So it has updated to, that just hasn't updated yet on Xcode. Okay, so let's say that we've moved to a different computer and we need a copy of our project. How do we get one? So basically, under source control, we can go clone, and because we're logged in as Swift Almanac Test, it'll list all the repositories, and if we're members of other organizations, like if you join the Swift Almanac organization, you'll be able to access our repositories. So basically just clone that, and it will download it to the desktop and open it up. If we look at the version control here, it'll have created a local branch on our computer with our added a print statement, and if we look at the remote, it'll also have all the details with remotes. So the only other thing we need to really consider is we've created them, we've downloaded them with the clone functionality, we've been able to commit to make changes. Now we need to make branches. So what branches allows us to do is segment code. So for instance, if you've got version 1 of your software, you've gone through a whole development cycle, then you're going to want to store that version in a location that's never going to change, so you can always rebuild it if you need to, so you can always go back to version 1. So while you're working on version 2, then you're going to branch off from your version 1, you're going to make the necessary changes. So I like to think of branches as being railway tracks, so that version 1 will just keep going straight ahead, and then you'll branch off and your train will go down a different track for version 2, and then at some stage in the future you might even want to merge those back in to create your final build for version 2. So typically what I do is I create a branch which I will call dev, and I set that branch to be the current branch. I can then go into my project and I can add files or delete files or make whatever changes I need. Let's go in here and get rid of this test commit function. I can save that, and I can then commit it. I'll push it to the remote as well, and it says down here that we're going to have to create this dev branch because it doesn't exist. So I've committed that change, and now if I look back at my source control, I've got my dev, which has got remove the print statements, and I've got my master, which doesn't have the print statements. So I'm basically able to, dearie me, doesn't like being updated. That's better. So basically, I've got two separate and complete copies of the code, one without the print statements, which is the development version, and one with the print statement, which is the master version. And I've also uploaded those to the remote GitHub site as well. Okay, now under the beta Xcode, I can't get branch merging to work, but I can show you how to do it under the GitHub website. So everything's been committed. Everything on our local is also on our on the GitHub site. So we go back to GitHub. We've got our test1 repository. We look at here, we've got two branches. There's a master and there's a dev. If we go to the dev branch, we can do a new pull request. It says here that we're able to merge, these can be merged automatically. So essentially what a pull request is doing on this website is merging the two branches together. So we create that pull request. And essentially it pulls all the changes from dev into the master. It says this is what's going on. It tells us that there are no conflicts with the base branch, which is our master branch. So we merge the pull request. We confirm the merger. We can make some notes as well and some comments. And pull request successfully merged and closed. And then if we so wish, we can delete the branch so that everything is, well, so we don't have millions of branches going forward. So if we go back to our test1, we've got just the one branch now, which is the master branch. And if we go into the code, the app.delegate.swift, you can see that the print statement's been removed. Now, what we do need to do is pull the remote changes from origin master back down, because we've made that merger on the website. And then we're going to have copies both on the server up to date and locally up to date. And then we can delete the branch that we're not using, and this one actually no longer exists, but our copy thinks it does, so we'll delete that as well. Okay, so you can have much more complex branching. For instance, I like to keep the master just as my final release versions, but you could have a separate branch called release. You could have a separate branch for development, and even off development, you can have a branch for each developer. And branching off dev, you could also have testing. And branching off dev, you could also have code review. So essentially, you can have a working area where you're developing your software, and then once you think it's ready, you could merge it into the code review branch. Someone external to yourself could review it. If they like your code, they could send it off to testing. A tester could then check out to make sure all the functionality is actually working, and if everyone's happy with that, they can move it back to dev, and when you finish your final development release and you want to move to a release version, you can send it to the release copy, or you can send it back to master. So depending on how you want to use source code control, how you want to break it down as part of your code management and production management system, those are ways that you can do it. Wow, that is so simple, and now we have a professional source code control system in place for all our projects. If you have any questions about the tutorial, then please leave a comment below or hit me up on Twitter @SwiftAlmanac. Please subscribe to the channel, it's free, and check out our website at www.swiftalmanac.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.